I wouldn't want to say I think I had natural talent. What I do have is an insane competitive drive and, I mean, somewhat a degree of stubbornness. I discovered that racing was an option with this, and it sort of opened an opportunity, a door that I didn't know existed, and I grabbed it with both hands, and I've worked hard. I can't deny that. I looked at my phone and it was dark outside, and I thought 5 a.m. I'll go back to sleep. I mean, I was 18. Who wants to be up at 5? And then at sort of 6:30, I sort of woke up again, and by waking up, I then realized what had happened was I was almost in a hypo-induced coma. I mean, I should have hoped that that was a bit of an awakening, but I would be lying if I said that didn't happen again in my next 4 years of university. And I truly just didn't care enough about my diabetes.
Today, I'm joined by someone whose story carves a pretty unique line through the snow-covered world of elite sport. Hamish is a professional telemark skier born in the UK. He's part of the British national team and is now based in Switzerland, where he lives and trains full-time. He also lives with type 1 diabetes, and today I'm looking forward to chatting with him about managing blood sugars at altitude, long days in the cold, and the pressure of international competition. When I first heard about Hamish, I was seriously impressed by his achievements. We were both training for the World Championships at the time, each in our own discipline, so we immediately had a connection, and I feel truly honored that he's agreed to share his story here today. So Hamish, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's dive right in. So first of all, you're a telemark skier. Some people may not be familiar with telemark skiing as a sport, so maybe could you tell us what exactly is telemark skiing and how is it different from alpine skiing?
Yeah, of course. So telemark skiing, it originates from Telemark, which is an area in Norway, and it was used primarily as a mode of transport. So when people think of skiing now, it is with what we know of as an alpine binding. So you're clipped in with both your toes and your heels. Telemark, the idea is that you can go both downhill, uphill, and along the flat without having to change anything. So, in the most basic terms, we're just clipped in with our toes and your heel lifts up. So when we turn, every single turn is like doing a lunge. And in our racing, we have both going downhill, doing these lungy type turns, jumping in a similar manner to you would see ski jumping, say, in the Olympics, and then cross-country skiing, because that covers all the aspects of this sort of mode of transport that is telemark skiing. So we actually have to do all three. So there's the downhill section, and you can get, if you're not in sort of proper telemark position, then you would get penalty seconds added onto your race time. There's then a jump, and if you don't travel far enough in said jump or land in telemark position, then there's potential to get more penalty seconds added on. Then we tend to go back into more of the racing downhill. And then we also have a bank turn similar to like a berm. It's called a loom, similar to a berm in mountain biking or gravel riding. And then we have the cross-country section as well. So we do everything in one race.
It sounds like quite a niche sport, I would say. So how did you end up in this discipline?
If I'm honest, it was by chance. So one of my best friends, he was also a ski instructor. And it's one of these things. I've lived in the mountains since 2010, 11. And I skied alpine every single day of winter. And eventually, I think bored is maybe a bit extreme, but it's nice to have something else to do. So I learned to snowboard, and then I tried monoskiing from like the 1970s, 80s. And then my friend who did Telemark, and I always thought, wow, that looks super hard, super brutal. I never really wanted to try it. And then I tried it, had one afternoon where I found it incredibly frustrating. But then I wanted to try again, and it just sort of grew from there. And that's now, I would say, every moment I have free when I'm not teaching or coaching alpine skiing, I'm telemarking because I love it. It's just a completely different feeling. I mean, it's so similar yet so different. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's a passion, but it's, you would say, is it a natural talent? Would you describe yourself as a natural talent? Because you've reached the highest level of the sport.
I wouldn't want to say I think I had natural talent. What I do have is an insane competitive drive and, I mean, somewhat a degree of stubbornness as well, which, I mean, from my experience in, I mean, all sports that I've competed in, I think if you want to try and push the higher levels, I think you probably need some form of that. But I discovered that racing was an option with this. I'd never achieved what I wanted to do in alpine racing, and it sort of opened an opportunity, a door that I didn't know existed. And I grabbed it with both hands, and I've worked hard. I can't deny that.
Yeah, so that's determination and yeah, persistence, admirable. So tell me, how did you make it to the World Championships of all places? And what was that like?
So the World Cup is the sort of year on year, a number of races, and then you get points from each race. And you then, similar to, let's say, Formula One, the Formula One World Championship, the person with the most number of points at the end of the winter wins the globe. So you get that for overall, you get that for the three individual disciplines as well. But I mean, I started off at a lower level, so what's called face racing, and I sort of, a friend had sent a video to the British team coach that I didn't know about. So it was the same friend that taught me, and I didn't know about this, and the coach Seb then got in touch and just was like, okay, I can work with this. If you're willing to work, then we'll give this a go. We'll start off racing at the lower levels and see where you get to. So that was that.
You seized the opportunity.
Yeah, very, very much so. Yeah.
You're not only a top athlete, on top of that, you're also a top type 1 diabetic. So when did type 1 diabetes enter the picture for you?
So I was 5 when I was diagnosed. I'd just started my first year of school in the UK. So living in Scotland, living in Edinburgh. I was, I mean, I'd always been a pretty, I mean, not large, but a reasonably built child. I was never skinny. And all of a sudden, my mum and dad had realized that I was losing quite a lot of weight. And I was in an ever so slightly fortunate position that my dad was a vet. And it turned out I had exactly the same symptoms, or close enough to the same symptoms that a medium-sized dog would have if it had undiagnosed diabetes.
Yes.
And so my dad, it was my mum's birthday. We'd actually been for lunch. And I think before any food had arrived, I'd apparently had like 5 glasses of water. And mum had turned to dad and was just like, he's not right. And dad had his suspicions. Mum, I mean, she then told me, I mean, years after, that when she blew out her candles on her birthday cake, her wish was that I was okay. And dad, I think, took me to his vet surgery, did some tests, and then took me to the Children's Hospital in Edinburgh. And yeah, I was diagnosed with diabetes. And I mean, I know a number of people that are now my age that are vets, and they quite like to think that they could also be doctors. And I think he was relatively, I mean, obviously not happy with the diagnosis, but at the
No.
same time, mildly enthused that he got it right.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically you had the same symptoms as a diabetic dog, and
Yeah,
that's how he knew. Ah,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It's lucky, early detection is important.
Yep,
So that was
yep.
good. So as a child, from what I hear, you grew up in a supportive environment for your type 1 diabetes?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I was definitely fortunate in that our family were always relatively fit and active anyway. I mean, dad was a rugby player and was still playing into his 40s, early 40s. He was still playing. Mum, I mean, she played tennis competitively, she played basketball competitively, and we were just always, as a family, we were outdoors. And so we'd never had sort of foods that you would class as were particularly unhealthy. And I also know I don't really recall life pre-diabetes. And so I never had any major changes that I feel that I had to make. But mum and dad were incredibly supportive, and I have two siblings, older sister, younger brother. And I mean, they've also been, even more so as I've gotten older, super supportive. So yeah, I mean, I've definitely been lucky. That I can say for sure.
Having that support system is really important. But once you moved out of your parents' house at a later age, did that change?
Yeah. So I had always been brought up with this idea that I was no different to anybody else. And if I would go away on, say, a school camp or a ski racing camp, there were differences. I mean, mom and dad weren't there. I was left with coaches or teachers and other people, other kids my age. That was harder, but at the same time, for the most part, I think there were instructions from my parents. University, however, I was set free is maybe not the right term to use, but I tried to do university. Really the way that I thought that people were meant to, at least in the UK. This idea of being able to party, eat whatever, do whatever you wanted. As someone that was diabetic, in hindsight now, I look back and I would have hated to have been my parents if they had known exactly, or my consultant for that matter, if they'd known what my control and what I was doing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So did you have any bad situations happen in that time with your diabetes?
I definitely had a couple. There was one day in my first year, we'd had quite a big night of partying. I think it was maybe after a ski race. And I lived in, at that point, first year university, I lived in accommodation where it was catered at both breakfast and dinner. And I'd woken up and it was 5 p.m. Or no, it was 5-ish. I looked at my phone and it was dark outside. And I thought, 5 a.m., I'll go back to sleep. I mean, I was 18. Who wants to be up at 5? And then at sort of 6:30, I sort of woke up again. And by waking up, I then realized what had happened was I was almost in a hypo-induced coma. And I looked out my window, which was underneath my bed, and I was on the top floor looking down, and I could see everybody going into the building where we had dinner. And I sort of stumbled around this tiny sort of studio and realized that I was severely hypo. And at this point, there was no continual monitoring. I have no idea what my blood had been doing for the last, I don't know, 12, 15 hours. And I somehow managed to eat something and then make my way to dinner. And I should have hoped that that was a bit of an awakening, but I would be lying if I said that didn't happen again in my next 4 years of university. And I truly just didn't care enough about my diabetes.
Yeah. I mean, that is 12 hours of hypo. I mean, you were off by 12 hours basically. You thought it was way earlier than it was. She must have been hypo for a long time. So disturbingly, I find that story very recognizable. I mean, I once had a similar episode at university where I woke up in my room at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, lying on the floor of my bedroom and with a roll of glucose tabs in my hand. So I'd had a very long hypo and clearly tried to get myself out of it, but failed. So we can laugh about these things in hindsight, I think. But it also shows that diabetes can go seriously wrong if you're not on top of your diabetes management. So you mentioned it wasn't a wake-up call for you back then. So when was that wake-up call for you? When did you start taking your diabetes more seriously? When did you get in control again?
So I would say probably mid 20s. I mean, it got to a point where I realized friends and family they were worried about me. I mean, whether it was my now 94-year-old grandma, whether it was my mum, whether it was a friend that I lived with in an apartment, or somebody that I did a sport with. Yeah, there was a lot of concern from people, and that was the realization that the fact that other people cared that much was that I should probably also care more. And then because of, I mean, I guess gross mismanagement, I started to develop problems with my eyes. And so my right eye now, I actually only have, I've had such a vast amount of laser work done to retinopathy on that I only have about 50%, well, maybe 60% vision in my right eye. And so it was these two things really combined was the proper wake-up call, which is, I mean, I don't want to say too late, but in hindsight, I rarely regret stuff, but I wish I'd done something about it sooner. So
Yeah, I mean, you can pretend probably for a while that diabetes doesn't exist, but it will come to haunt you if you do that at some point. And yeah, it's nice to hear actually that it was your family and the people around you that gave you that warning and that actually made you do these changes, make these changes in your life. So diabetes was part of your life before you got into professional sports. So when you decided to start competing, I would say probably diabetes management had to be tighter. So how did your diabetes management change at that point?
well, despite having lived now in Switzerland for, I mean, the best part of 11 years, still, I liked my consultant in the UK and I still went to my consultant in Scotland. And it was just a case of organizing a flight once or twice a year to make sure, or timing it to visit family, that I was seeing somebody. But my control definitely wasn't where it should have been. I then, a couple of years ago, as I pushed towards a higher level of sport and the discovery of the Novo Nordisk cycling team, I found out that their lead consultant is actually based out of a hospital in Switzerland. And I had a friend sort of push me in that direction, and I haven't really looked back since, because they obviously deal with athletes, and it's become much, I mean, I would say easier overall, but again, I'm a new sport for them, but I think their understanding of how my mind perhaps works is I don't want to I wouldn't want my other consultant from the UK listening to this and feeling like they did a poor job, but the consultants I now have, I think, just understand me a little bit better.
So this specific experience that they have with diabetes and exercise, diabetes and sports, that was something that really made a difference for you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my entire life, I mean, I'm one of these people, I struggle to sit still. If I'm not skiing, I'm running, or in winter, I'm doing cross-country skiing, or summertime, it's time on the road bike, or trail running, or training for a marathon. Like, there's always something else going on. And yeah, it's been a bit of a journey in the past few years for sure. So
Can you maybe just to make it a bit more concrete, can you tell me one of the changes you've made since then that have had an impact on your diabetes management?
well, for years and years, I was using Lantus and Fiasp, and recently I swam as that. I think in November, my consultant was just like, "Look, Hamish, this is kind of crazy. Like you're doing in summertime a lot of endurance sports. You're spending hours on the bike or hours out running, and we've got very little control over what your background insulin is doing." So I changed to Levemir, and that has made quite a significant difference because I mean, even well, maybe 10 months ago, my HbA1c was still good. I was sitting at probably 6.9 to 7.1, which I always thought was pretty acceptable. Since changing now, I mean, I'm sitting at 6.1. And
Oh,
yeah, I mean, I
that's really
know,
good control.
yeah, but it also, I mean, it helps me relax longer term. I know that that also is going to help me. So it's, I've got more control during sport. I've got way more control during the night after sport and the day after, especially if I've cycled 100K or run 40 kilometers or whatever. Then I
Like we
know
do every day.
I,
Yes.
I'm trying to learn that rest day thing still, but
Yeah. So if I'm right, you're currently using a CGM and insulin pens for injection.
yeah,
Have you ever considered changing to a pump?
I have and I haven't. I definitely have because of the people I know that have pumps, their control is far better, especially in the night. There's two things for me. One, I've never been a massive fan of having something stuck into me. I mean, I've got no problem with a CGM, but I don't want to have like a tube that joins into something else. And I always think, I mean, if I was to say go windsurfing, which in summer again is something that I love to do, or I go for a run and then I want to just jump in a lake because again, fortunately in Switzerland, I can jump in
You live in the
anywhere.
perfect environment, yeah.
Yeah, like it just seems like a little bit of hassle to have to take off. But the other thing is, and I never really, and this is something I've thought about a lot recently. I've never been somebody that I felt people, I never really cared about people judging. But I always think if I take my top off and I then have a pump stuck onto me, like tied in a waistband or whatever, I just, I don't know. For some reason, it just like I want to try and be a fit looking athlete. And it sounds kind of crazy, but I think it makes me maybe look less athletic, which is a really crazy mindset to have, I think. But, I mean, we're still waiting for clearance in Switzerland for it. The new Omnipod is something that I am definitely intrigued about. Now, with my team, it's figuring out where exactly underneath a near enough skin tight ski racing suit that takes impacts on the arms, takes impacts on the legs, or if I crash, I slide down the mountain on my torso. It's figuring out where that might go. But that's still likely looking another month or two away before that's an option here. So,
But what you said before, I found very touching in a way, because it shows that the image that people may have of a type 1 diabetic, a typical type 1 diabetic, does not match the idea of an athlete in a way that you say there's like a discrepancy almost between the two. You would say, okay, an athlete doesn't have CGM, doesn't have an insulin pump. So basically an athlete doesn't have type 1 diabetes. Is that something you would agree with? Or is that something that's maybe in the back of your head sometimes?
yeah, I mean, for me growing up, I knew of one type 1 athlete. That was it. And he is, to the best of my knowledge, the most successful British rower in Olympic history. So Sir Steve Redgrave. And growing up, I mean, I remember watching, I mean, games in like the US. My parents would get me up and I would watch him because I could see what another diabetic athlete was doing. But then there was nobody else. And it's only in the last few years that I mean, I'm admittedly not the best at social media. And it's discovering that there are actually other people that are type 1 diabetic and in their own right pretty successful athletes, whether it's yourself or a ski cross racer or a rugby player or a football player. There's actually way more of us than I think there are, which I find quite interesting. But going back to that point about not looking like an athlete, it's funny because as soon as I had the option of the first ever Freestyle Libre, I wore it. I mean, it sounds strange, but almost like a badge. I was quite happy to have that. But I think it was also because it made my life so much easier and helped my control so much. And so I do find it odd that I wouldn't then want to wear a pump that joins onto a patch or with a tube. And yeah, it's maybe more my mindset than anything else.
What you said about, how you're feeling as a child, it highlights, I would say, the importance of role models, other type 1, successful type 1 athletes for children and with type 1 diabetes, to see that they can also do these things. Would you, because now you're a pretty successful athlete now, so would you ever consider yourself a role model for younger type 1 diabetics?
It's hard. I mean, I think I would like to be, but if I'm completely honest, I don't know the best way to go around doing that. And my like I said, social media for me, it's a constant fight of never knowing how or what to post. Um, it's an interesting one. I would love to be able to inspire I mean, especially diabetic kids that feel maybe ever so slightly lost as to how to get into sport or how to do sport, or even support their parents as to helping them. But I find it a sort of it's quite a tough avenue for me to go down. So yeah.
But I like the fact that we're talking now, and I hope that kids with type 1 diabetes will see that. I think you have a story that's worth like showing to the world. So I'm happy that we have this conversation, and I hope that it will be, it will be inspiring to young athletes with type 1 diabetes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would hope so too. I mean, the thing I would also love is for people without diabetes to listen to a podcast like this, because that's another thing that I think there is this huge misunderstanding of what diabetes actually is. Because like you said earlier, I mean, people think of somebody being diabetic, I think more typically associated with type 2, either from age or from having previously not had a fantastic diet, as opposed to this type 1 genetic where we have no control. And you end up, I saw a post online the other day, and it was essentially describing life as a type 1 diabetic. You are just your own life support machine, which sounded rather extreme, I thought. But then the more I thought about it, it made sense, because as soon as you stop doing X, you stop doing Y, it can be pretty disastrous. So yeah,
Yeah.
I know for me, working with my ski team and the other athletes that are in the team with me and my coach, it's been fairly eye-opening to them, which I quite enjoy. I mean, it's become this giant science experiment of following what, so let's say we all eat together. We're all eating the same meals on the World Cup circuit, and what one meal is going to do for me one day compared to another meal the next day. So if it's, I mean, if, for example, when we were in Sweden, we had a fish stew with potatoes one day for dinner, and then the next day was pasta. And it's always a challenge when I've got no control and no idea as to what exactly has gone into the food. And then now my teammates, they love nothing more than watching what's happening on my phone to see what my blood's doing compared to how much insulin I've had or what we've eaten. And yeah, I mean, I like that other people have an interest in it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, diabetes, you got diabetes when you were 5 years old. So for you, it's always been part of your life. And then if sometimes it is an eye opener if other people are looking at it and saying, this is hard. I mean,
Yeah.
this is not easy. And sometimes, we're athletes too. So we tend to think of ourselves as strong. You don't admit that it's hard and it's, you just have to toughen up. But yeah, in a way, diabetes, it's so many decisions that you have to make every day. It can be stressful too. And that you don't really realize it, I think, if you were diagnosed at a young age, because it's just always been part of your life.
Yeah.
So talking to other people can be a real eye opener there. Another thing I wanted to ask here about this race suit. So have you ever lost your diabetes gear while training or racing in the mountains? Because you were very worried about that, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have. I can actually I've got one in the cupboard if you want. I can show you, I can throw my arm in and I can show you how tight it is compared to my sensor if you'd like.
Oh, yeah, sure. Show us.
This bit I hadn't really planned, but
No worries.
but yeah, so this is essentially the race
wow.
suit.
Yeah.
And as you
Yeah.
see,
Aero suit.
yeah, but this is me fighting to get my arm in.
Yes.
And once it's on, there is padding up here,
Mm-hmm.
but I've knocked sensors off. Absolutely, yeah. It's I mean, it's tight and but I can feel my sensor through the suit, and if I knock it slightly, I think the problem is more, I mean, if anybody's ever worn a wetsuit, they know this experience of you peel off a layer, and you peel off.
Yeah.
And you just, if you get it slightly wrong, sensor's gone, and then I mean, I'll always,
Yeah.
luckily in my ski bag, I'll have another spare and my blood testing kit. But it's that frustration of, I mean, it's one of my most hated things is if you put a sensor on and you lose it within 48 hours. It feels like such a waste. So,
Yes, 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 because they're supposed to last way longer. Yeah.
yeah.
So you live, you train, and you race in the mountains. And there's another topic I think in diabetes management that I would like to discuss with you because you'll be the expert. So obviously, when it comes to snow sports, the higher the mountain, the lower the temperature in general. So, and also you are going down a hill quite fast, so I guess the wind also makes the temperature like feeling drop even more. So, what do you think is the impact of that cold and altitude on your diabetes?
Well, first of all, I mean, if I was going skiing normally for myself, I mean, I can dress up in a multitude of layers and be quite a comfortable temperature. But your face is still exposed. The back of your neck, I mean, yeah, okay, you could wear up like a buff, a neck warmer. But the cold, your body has to then fight to stay warm. So you use more energy. I mean, even if you're not diabetic, you use more energy to stay warm on the side of a mountain. It's pretty simple. The opposite is in the heat. If you're out in the desert and you're able bodied, you feel tired at the end of the day because you're using more energy to stay cold. And I think with diabetes, you've got exactly the same thing. Now, you've seen the race suit. It's not super thick. They're not super thermal. So, I mean, on a day that if we're training race gates, then I would probably wear that suit, a set of overshorts, and like a soft shell jacket. And the frustration is when we're training, it's not like it's one run. It's maybe 15 runs in an afternoon or a morning. But I've got the rest of the team there as well. So you ski a run, you get really warm. You stand at the bottom, I chat to my coach, get feedback, I go back up the lift, I stand at the top, and with the rest of the team, we then look at how the next person is skiing on the course, and we will only do one person on the course at one time. Your body temperature drops. Yeah, I mean, it's hard because you don't want to continually put on and off layers. You've got other bits of equipment like your poles you're holding on to. You've got your skis on your feet. Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. And again, I mean, if I'm training, I always tuck my phone into my race suit, which I probably shouldn't do, but it allows my coach to see what my blood's doing so that when I get to the bottom of the course, he then tells me what it is, along with what I've either done well or what I've done not so well in my run.
So your coach follows your glucose on the run?
He does, yeah. I mean, he probably wouldn't look at my glucose mid-run. So more often than not, when we train, we're only skiing for, I mean, I would say a minute, if that, for the training slopes.
You're
But
fast.
what he does, not as fast as I'd like to be, but I think everybody always wants to be faster, right? But what he does do is when I get down, he will grab his phone and then tell me what my blood is without me having to take off multiple layers to then get inside and find my phone.
Wow.
Because, and again, but this is, for him, this has also become a giant science experiment. And I think he quite likes it. So, yeah.
That's nice, but it's nice to have a coach that's actually also taking your diabetes into account and actually helping you with that. I think it's a real support when you're racing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm really fortunate that Seb has been as understanding as he is. I mean, from the very beginning of getting to know him, he had stated that he knew that this was going to be different to coaching any other athlete. Now, in our team, we have other athletes with allergies or, I mean, perhaps other issues, but he said he's never really dealt with anything quite like this.
No.
So, yeah.
It's a complex thing, type 1 diabetes. So yeah,
Yep.
it's nice to have someone who supports you with that. But so you would say that there's a lot of changes in temperature, and do you actually see them in your blood glucose in a way, or do you like time your carb intake around that?
I mean, it's a challenging one because the biggest thing I've noticed is definitely my spike in blood sugar because of adrenaline. And again, you would think being used to skiing through a course time and time again that this wouldn't happen every single run I do. But it does, because I struggle to stand in the start gate, even on a training run, and go, I'll just ski this really easily. Like, I'm too competitive. And I want every run to feel like I'm racing. And so I always have these little spikes. But then as soon as I stop and I'm going, say, back up the lift, then I can maybe start to notice, I mean, okay, it takes a little bit of time to catch up, but my blood will start to drop again. But my biggest learning curve has been to not panic if my blood, especially before a race, suddenly jumps from 7 to 14. Because previously I would take insulin and then find myself 30 seconds before going into the start gate, hypo, which
Wow.
then you just can't race. It's as simple as
No,
that.
your race is over. Yeah. Yeah. So that race stress is a big factor for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So would you, because from what I can hear, you really want to be in control of your diabetes, and you would panic if it seems like diabetes is getting out of control. So would you say you're a perfectionist when it comes to diabetes management, or how should I look at that?
Yeah, perfectionist is maybe quite a good word to use. I mean, I have my ranges set relatively low. So my hypo alarm kicks in at 4.9 so that I can do something about it before it's too late. And I have my high glucose alarm right now set at 9.2, which again is quite extreme. And
Yeah.
it's okay, maybe it's helped with my HbA1c, but it's probably not the best way to go about it. I mean, my consultant has actually told me now, he was like, before you go to bed, change your high glucose one to 14.5 because you're just going to be awake all night. He was like, it's not a disaster. But part of me, I'm like, but then I'm not where I want to be. And this, again, using something like CGM, it's become almost like a game for me in terms of diabetes management. Like, I have the ability to set these boundaries, and I do everything I can to stay within them. Now, sometimes I overcorrect, and if I'm going high, I'll overcorrect, and suddenly I find myself going hypo and having to eat something, or vice versa. I find myself at 4.9, maybe with a downward trending arrow, and I'll have something to eat. And the next thing I know is my blood is leveled off at 4.8, and I'm kicking myself because I know that my blood's only going to go up. And so I realize I probably cause myself slightly more stress than I need to by trying to be this ultra competitive perfectionist when it comes to management.
But you look at your CGM graph a lot. That's what I can hear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I having now managed to get it onto my watch, I spend a lot of time looking at my watch. Yeah.
That's useful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
That's really a game changer, I would say, for yeah, when you're competing or in sports, it's so much faster than having to take out your phone or having somebody else uh,
Oh
that
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
tells you, yeah, okay, your sugar is high, your sugar is low.
yeah.
Um, so I often have this thought that I've met a lot of athletes with type 1 diabetes, and I've found that despite all the negatives that may be associated with diabetes, for many of them, diabetes can become also a positive story or even a sort of superpower. Do you see diabetes as something that's made you, in a way, better or stronger, or maybe more aware or more prepared, or changed you as a person in a positive way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely given me a really good form of resilience. I mean, you look at other people that, I mean, if you take like, let's go for just your standard working adult who does Monday to Friday in an office, maybe 9 to 5, 9 to 6, and then they have a weekend and they can just relax. Or you look at another athlete and I mean, I said rest day, something that I struggle with, but you can't do that when you're diabetic because you can't rest from diabetes. It's like having another job that you don't get paid for. And if you don't do it, it's much more disastrous than just getting fired.
Yeah.
And so this, I think there's both positive and negative aspects to it, but I realized that if I manage to stay as fit and as healthy as I have done with diabetes, I should then be able to push even further. Like when I think, I mean, the other day I was cycling with my partner, and I mean, she's been training on the bike a lot recently, and we'd climbed, I don't know, 2,000 meters, and I had another 100 to go, and I was just, I mean, my legs were dying. I mean, I was, I, but I also didn't want to stop and get the bus. And I looked at what, like that stubbornness drive that diabetes has definitely given me. I was just like, yeah, like it's 100 vertical meters. Like just keep going. Like it's fine. But I also, I mean, the mindset, I was like, well, it's a road I've driven a million times, and I've seen plenty of, to the best of my knowledge, non-diabetic cyclists going up. And so I also was just like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Like there's no reason that my diabetes should stop me from doing anything. Like, yeah, okay, there's a complication behind it, but yeah, it it gives me almost more drive.
Yeah. So I, I, I hear here that maybe being a high level athlete with type 1 has also shaped how you see yourself uh, in a way. Do you also think it has shaped how people see you, or do you see any difference? Do you see surprise maybe, or how do people look at you if when they find out you have diabetes, being an athlete?
Yeah, I think for the most part, when people find out that I do what I do and I'm diabetic, I think more often than not, if it's somebody new, I mean, I've heard it, I don't know how many times, but it's oh, I didn't think someone diabetic would look like you, which I find, I mean, at the time, I'm always like, I'm kind of proud of it, but I also think it ever so slightly annoys me because when you can look,
Yeah.
now it doesn't care, I don't care, you can look whichever way you want, but there's
Yeah.
always this assumption that I shouldn't be able to do what I do because of diabetes. So,
Hmm. So there's still some prejudice, you would
yeah,
say, with yeah. So yeah, creating more awareness. I think it's important to show that
yeah,
as a type 1 that being a type 1 diabetic doesn't mean you can't be active. You can't
no,
be an
absolutely not.
athlete. So maybe going on from there, you're pretty much in control now of your diabetes, or at least more than the average person I would know. And so you have to be as an athlete. And so what would you say to a young athlete who's just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and is afraid that they'll have to give up their dreams?
Well, I mean, I'm not a fan of sugarcoating things, and I would definitely tell them that their journey is now going to become more complicated. It's not easy, but from my experience, things that are easy very rarely give you much of a reward in return. So, I mean, you go for an easy hike, you don't get the best view. You go for a harder hike that's more technical, it's going to look nicer at the top. If they've also managed to reach their ability without diabetes as a young athlete, then they should also know that diabetes won't stop them from going further. Like, especially at this day and age, we're so fortunate with the technology we have now. It's a hell of a lot different to 25 years ago. But they definitely shouldn't stop. You have to get your parents to find a team that work for you, and everyone else should be able to support you in that journey.
Yeah, that's a nice thing to say. I definitely agree now. Also, that technology has made things more achievable in a way, because, for instance, I did Ironman, but I would never have done Ironman without CGM. I mean, I would never have imagined doing that because I found it so hard. It's shorter distance triathlon with just finger pricks, but it was hard. I mean, it was really hard having to do a finger prick after coming out of the water in your wetsuit. It was not easy. You can't be competitive in that way because you have to stop and care for your diabetes. So yeah, in that way, I think technology has made a lot more possible for younger athletes, but it's not the whole story. Like you say, you don't have to sugarcoat it. There's also hard work involved.
Yeah.
But if they put in the hard work, yes, they can achieve their dreams. They can do that. So I could keep on talking to you for ages because, yeah, I find this conversation really inspirational. But I would like to end our chat with a bit of fun. So I have a few rapid fire questions for you to answer.
Okay.
If you're okay with that, yeah, just give me a short answer. Okay? Yeah. So here goes. What's your favorite hypo snack?
Oh, Pringles.
Music or silence when training on the mountain?
Music.
What kind of music?
Anything and everything, from hip hop to classical movie soundtracks.
Which is worse, hypo or hyper?
Hyper.
If you could pick your dream place in the world for skiing, where would that be?
Lenzerheide, Switzerland. Home.
You're in the best place in the world. So, what was your most terrifying or exhilarating moment on the mountain?
Most terrifying, probably having to be picked up by a helicopter because I was hypo. Despite being conscious, I'd gone into a coma, had ordered a Coca-Cola, had managed to have 2 sips, went unconscious, then recovered consciousness, but still had to go on a helicopter ride. The view I did get to sit up and watch, and that was amazing. But it did cost a lot.
Yes. Yeah, there's a positive in that, even in that story. So, have you ever used your diabetes as an excuse?
Absolutely. I used to quite often skip the lunch line at school because I didn't want to wait and I was hungry, and I would just say I was hypo.
Good for you. What's your preferred injection site for insulin?
Oh, I tend to go legs or stomach, but it's also dependent on what I've been doing sport-wise and how much I'm injecting as well.
If we meet again on the same day next year, do you think you'll be wearing an insulin pump?
If it works for ski racing, I would think there is a high chance I would be, And it
Which
gets
one?
medical clearance in Switzerland.
Oh yeah, that one. Yes, yeah, Omnipod 5. What's the hardest part of living with type 1 diabetes that most people don't realize?
Never getting a break from it. I have a second though. Also thinking when you've got control of the disease for like 2 days of flatline blood, and then it's like diabetes kicks you when suddenly you eat the same things, you do the same things, and it behaves completely differently.
You think you've got it under control, but then, yeah, the devil kicks at you. So that was good. Thanks. You did great. That brings us to the end of today's conversation. How was it for you?
Yeah, good. Really enjoyed it. So thanks. Yeah, I do. I would actually quite like to chat again in a year. It'd be interesting to see if there's a difference.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. If people want to follow your journey, where can they find you on social media?
Well, I've got probably the most complicated Instagram handle in the world, which is, I need to double check this. I should know it. I am the.athletic.diabetic25.
Why 25?
Because somebody else had the athletic diabetic, and the 25th of February is my birthday.
That's a good reason.
Well, this was my discovery that there were more diabetic athletes, because I thought, there's no way that's going to be taken. It turns out it was.
My God, yeah. There are other people like me.
Yeah.
No,
exactly.
great. I will put it in the notes as well, so
Okay.
people can find you. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story. It was a real pleasure talking to you. I loved your insights into what it means to live with type 1 diabetes as an athlete at the highest level. And I would say your honesty, your resilience, and the passion are a true inspiration for everyone living with type 1 diabetes. Hamish, keep up the good work. Yes. Keep up the good work. And good luck preparing for your next races.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Out of Range, the podcast that shares real stories from athletes living and thriving with type 1 diabetes. I hope today's conversation inspired you to get active, take control, and find your own balance in sport and in life. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and follow the show, or share it with someone who might benefit from hearing these stories. Every recommendation helps more people with type 1 diabetes discover the power of movement. And in the meanwhile, keep learning, keep moving, and keep your glucose in range.